go
Yeah.
back to the life story thing for a second, because when you do this, I think when I've talked to people about this, when you introduce yourself, something as simple as introducing yourself is not straightforward, because you're always gauging what the other person can understand, what they want to hear, what they mean, what they're trying to get out of the interaction, because there isn't a straightforward answer that they're looking for. And so, do you think there's therapy just in being able to answer the question honestly?
Yes, absolutely. And making that shift. So, like you were just expressing, we're constantly thinking about what they need from the interaction. I remember reading Goffman's work sort of from the 50s around presentation of self and identity. And he's a sociologist that frames it as a performance, essentially. And he talks about being on stage. And if the audience doesn't understand what's happening on stage, the actors are the ones who are shamed, typically. And that feels very present for TCKs. Instead of, okay, they just didn't get it, we feel like we've done it wrong. And that matters. And that keeps our focus very much on what the audience needs, rather than on what we're actually wanting to do, what we're wanting to tell, the story we want, rather than writing our own script, essentially. And so for me, the process of storying centers us as authors so that we can come to a place of going, oh, you didn't get it? Okay, feel free to ask questions. I can give you some notes after the show, or just that's okay. You can be confused. I'm so confident in I am who I say I am that you not understanding doesn't actually shape
Wow.
that. That's
That
okay.
must lead to a lot of, not having that must lead to a lot of loneliness.
Yeah, because you're constantly pruning pieces off in case people don't get it, in case they don't connect with it. And of course, in the process, we're disconnecting from it as
Yeah.
well. And so finding ways to really I often feel like when I'm watching somebody work through their story, we're kind of going back into the past and we're gathering them up and kind of bringing them back into the present with us. Because we'll often have this sense of, I don't know who I am, as if there's a void, but there's just so much of us. And finding a way to kind of bring all of those pieces in and let them integrate and let them play nice with each other and find appreciation and expression for all of them and let them be big and occasionally
Yeah.
confusing. That's okay.
Because it is big. It is big to start life in a new place. It is big to have different languages, different cultures that you're aware of, you have a deeper understanding of. So there actually, in a way, is more of you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think of this in terms of, this is where sociology was so brilliant for me because we could go, okay, so there are roles, there are social roles. We have, I am woman, I am sibling, I am parent, I am white. And you could go on and on, I'm this age or whatever. And then we take each one of those and we apply them to each one of the cultures we have inhabited. So I am woman in Niger. Okay. I am woman in England. I am woman in France. Those are three different ways of womaning already. So each one of these points multiply out. Like that's how much we're holding within us and negotiating between. And so naming them, observing them, understanding them as characters at play, and then making conscious choices about how we interact with them. It's just so powerful.
Yeah. And do you find, I can imagine that once people have recognized that they're holding more than maybe the average person can understand, that makes it feel better that they don't understand, that there's nothing wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong, and it's not necessarily rejection either. But also, actually, the more precise we can get about the more we're holding, the more likely we are to find connecting points with people from vastly different experiences. So I can sit here and go, well, I've got all these different ways of being woman. Well, the person down the street who has lived in the same street their whole life is probably negotiating with multiple gender
Yeah.
expectations as well,
Yeah.
actually. But if I can get precise that that's what I'm actually doing, it's not that, oh, I'm negotiating with African gender identities or expectation. I'm negotiating with just gender identities and expectation. I can get precise. Now I can
Yeah.
connect. Now we can both actually find that thread between us. There's something about getting the big and getting it really specific that actually really does connect us. It's very exciting.
And it strikes me that maybe the better you know yourself, the more you can connect with others. And having a
Absolutely.
framework to understand your experience, such as a life story, like exercise, is connecting you to yourself so you can connect to others as well. but it's not available in school. Like there's not like they're like, hey, everyone who's from different cultures, we're going to teach you a language. We're going to identify that maybe you're not as good at the language or give you extra support that way. But just the concept of your life is not really given to us this way. So that's really interesting. And history is also complicated. Every part of learning history is then suddenly you're on different sides of it. So I can imagine that this is a very, very nice exercise. And so when you're working with people, so a good example, so I just realized after I moved, so I've only moved to one country from the US to the Netherlands, I started realizing my story in a whole other context as well, because my ancestors came across the plains as Mormon pioneers. And so they came from
Right.
England to, across in the boats and then the hand carts and then the struggle and the religious persecution and all of these things I heard growing up and they shaped who I was. And then suddenly I'm leaving the States. Luckily, I wasn't running away. I was running towards something. I wanted my kids to be bilingual and I wanted to live abroad. That was a goal of mine. But when I got here, I realized I was reversing their story in a way. And so that was a really powerful moment of realizing how strongly stories affect the stories we hear about our country, ourselves, our family, our religion, our other people's religions. They shape how we live our lives. And so for me, story has always been such an important thing, but I just didn't have any awareness. I'm returning my family to Europe. This is a big deal. This is generational potentially, like you said. And that was just such a moment of recognition.
Stories make meaning, right? Stories hold all of the characters at play and become the way we frame our experiences. So the more consciously we do it, the more conscious we are of the themes at play, the more power we've got in that to give it the meaning that is actually useful to us and propels us and motivates us and excites us and offers compassion for ourselves as
Yeah.
well. No, it's really
Yeah.
powerful.
Okay, that's this week's clip for our summer special. If you're new here or you've joined us recently and missed some of these earlier conversations, this series is for you. We're taking a little break from recording new episodes, but there are certain moments from past episodes we really wanted to share while we're away. If today's episode resonated, you can find the link to the full original episode and all related resources in the show notes below. Thanks so much for being here and letting House of Peregrine be part of your summer, no matter where in the world you're listening from.